flip a coin.
I've seen over the top. Brandon Grafe, I'm East Whiteland resident. Since the school district's health and safety plan is based solely on the recommendation of the CDC and the CCHD, I think it's imperative that you all consider how little science plays a role in that organization's decisions. Back in February, and all this information is sourced from the New York Post, fee.org, and msn.com. I spent way more time on this than I ever thought I would have needed to, but here I am. Back in February of this year, CDC was prepared to release its guidelines for returning to in-person instruction. But after a meeting with American Federation Teacher President Randy Weingarten, they backpedaled and revised the guidelines using wording provided by the AFT. AFT Senior Director for Health Issues publicly described her union as the CDC's thought partner. May 13th of this year, the CDC announced fully vaccinated Americans could stop wearing masks indoors and outdoors. May 14th, the next day, NEA President Becky Pringle and AFT President Randy Weingarten threatened to release a statement critical of the CDC and the White House. May 15th, after a meeting between the CDC Chief of Staff and both teachers union presidents, the CDC updated its masking guidance to indicate that all people should wear a mask at school, regardless of vaccination status. August 5th, the CDC quietly removed guidance for phasing out masks and other COVID-19 mitigation efforts in schools. The language in the agency's guidance for COVID-19 prevention in K-12 schools intended to help school administrators and local health officials transition from prevention strategies as cases moved to lower levels was removed after August 4th, the same day a draft of the updated policy was provided to the AFT and the NEA. Initially, CDC's guidance included metrics that could help schools decide which mitigation strategies to use. But those metrics were removed, which leaves me to ask again, as I did 2 months ago, to what end? If you're not curious by now, I implore you, please get curious, because on 11/9, just a few days ago, CDC Director Walensky suggested falsely that masks, and I quote, masks can help prevent the spread of COVID-19 by reducing your chance of infection by more than 80%. 80%, even me, a dopey taxpayer, knows that number that she gave is even better than the vaccines that they're pushing, which is ridiculous. And whether it's an infection from the flu, from the coronavirus, or even just the common cold, end quote. The narrative is changing, people. The narrative is changing because it takes me back to the what end, to what end. The narrative's changing now from COVID-19 practices and procedures. Now we're talking about the common cold. So now it's, I guess, the CDC's job to make sure my child doesn't get the cold. Now I say falsely because after a FOIA request was filed, the CDC could provide zero data to support her assertion, their own director. They didn't have information to support that assertion. And now their narrative is moving to include the flu and the cold. CDC Atlanta study. I hope you're all familiar with that.
You're
Conducted in November 16th to December 11th, involving 90,000 elementary students in 169 Georgia schools. The headline on their own study, quote, schools with mask mandates did not see statistically significant different rates of COVID transmission from schools with optional policies. And finally, I'll wrap it up. Far be it for me to come here without a solution. I hate people who bitch and moan and don't have solutions. I have a solution I think perhaps we can all agree on. My solution is, as much as I detest the CDC and the politicization of it, I would suggest to you to change the health and safety plan wording to this. Follow the recommendations of the CDC before they are sent to the teachers' unions for approval, because we can all agree on that.
Really?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Jerry Moore from Charlestown. I have a few questions for the board and the administrators. Do you identify as a member of the LGBTQIA, lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, intersex, and asexual community?
Homophobia.
Are you transgender? In the past 12 months, have you seriously considered attempting suicide? How do you describe yourself? Boy, man, girl, woman, non-binary, or gender non-conforming, or you prefer to self-describe? Do you feel these questions are inappropriate? If you do, then why are these questions being asked of Great Valley students, even sixth graders? What is the end game here? And trust me, I'm about the oldest person in this room, and I've seen this happen for 30 years. I've seen the downward trajectory. What is the end game? Well, if the people pushing these questions are correct in their thinking, that millions of children are just bursting at the seams to lead an alternate lifestyle, then I can tell you what the end game is. It's oblivion for these students and their families. There will be no more generations to come for these poor families, as alternative lifestyles lead to almost zero fertility. But what if the people pushing these questions are wrong? And in fact, these students were not destined, and in fact, never thought of these lifestyles until a seed was planted in their head, and further indoctrination sealed the deal. The power of suggestion to young minds is very powerful and dangerous. While the result, the end game, is the same regardless.
Is it
It's
dangerous to
oblivion.
the kids?
Or to
But
the
in this
parents,
case, the
because
people
it makes
pushing the
them
insanity
fearful.
are complicit in the outright destruction of these families. So I ask you, please go
How's
home,
this destroying families?
look in the mirror and ask yourselves, are you complicit in the fact that the people of this country are not even able to reproduce themselves anymore? We are already missing 30 million American children who should have been born but weren't.
Oh my.
Also, are
He's
you
one of
complicit in
those.
confusing and demoralizing so many people that now we have over 1 million drug overdose deaths, the rate of which is 16 times higher than when I was in high school. 16 times. Please think about this and the path you are on, and the utter destruction that this ideology has already done to our country. And please change this awful trajectory. You can do this. Thank you.